Hi guys, it's me, Tiffany, also known as Talkatiffy, and today we are going to talk about the process for a Malaysian to get out of the country during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as you guys may know, Malaysia is currently in a lockdown, meaning that we need permission in order to leave the country. And the government has specified several conditions in which we are permitted to go out. And this is done through something called MyTravelPass. So what I'll do today is I'll take you through the MyTravelPass application, and hopefully when you watch this video, you understand a little bit better whether or not you are one of those people that does need an application to go out and how you can get about getting that approval. For starters, I would just encourage you to go onto the MyTravelPass website. So the URL for that is mtp.imi.gov.my, or simply just Google MyTravelPass and that should be the first link on there. Because we're talking about Malaysians today, I want you to scroll to the section that says Malaysian, and then this will then take you to a section that tells you what are the grounds for which a Malaysian can use to apply to leave the country. There are several conditions. One being if you've just gotten a job offer or a study offer, if you would like to take an exam overseas. So those were the grounds in which I left the country. You would like to attend a meeting, a seminar, or a business dealing. You're either attending an exhibition, a sporting competition, or training overseas. You're either attending some sort of emergency situation for a close family member. This could be a death of a family member, an accident, or a hospitalization. You could also be a carrier of a spouse visa or a fiancé visa. You could also be going overseas to attend a humanitarian mission or a religious reason, or if you're a long-term pass holder for several other countries. So, there are also several groups of people who are not required to apply for the MyTravelPass, and these are diplomats and ambassadors of the country, students who are continuing their education, if you already have a valid student visa, if you are a long-term pass holder in another country, if you're working with a petroleum or oil and gas shipping company. Also, this will be interesting for parents and spouses. So if you are traveling with a student who's going overseas, then that student can have 2 people accompany them. And these 2 people don't need to apply on their own. Therefore, let's say you are parents of a student who's going overseas to study, you don't need an application, but your names will be included in your child's application when they apply. So there are a few other documents that you will need in order to complete your application, one of them being your passport. However, let me just say here that if your passport is expiring, the immigration department will not renew your passport under a lockdown unless you can show that you have a MyTravelPass and you are leaving the country. It's a bit of a circular situation, so I would definitely recommend that you apply for MyTravelPass first, get that approval, then use that approval to get your passport renewed if you can't make an appointment at the immigration department. Furthermore, the other documentation that you will need is your offer letter to work or study, an invitation letter if you're attending one of those conferences. If you're visiting a sick relative, then definitely get a letter from the doctor. Death certificate, unfortunately, if you're attending a funeral, and any other supporting documents. So here's where I'm going to give you my biggest tip, and that is to join this Facebook group called Malaysia Air Travel Support Group. Now, Malaysians have been known to be very helpful, and I think the best place you can find helpful Malaysians is probably on Facebook, and specifically there are 2 groups online that have been a huge wealth of resource for people who are trying to find information on traveling in and out of Malaysia during this pandemic, and that is the aforementioned Malaysia Air Travel Support Group as well as the Malaysia Quarantine Support Group. If you're looking for help, you're trying to find a place to ask questions, I definitely suggest you join that group. So let's move on to the actual application form itself. The form itself is pretty straightforward. There are a few conditions you do need to fulfill. Under travel purpose is a drop-down menu. If you find that your travel purpose doesn't fit in that, please click others. In travel description, it is a long form box. That means you write in whatever you would like. I really recommend you get into extreme detail on why this trip is necessary. So there have been several people who have had their applications rejected on the basis that this is a non-essential trip. For instance, in my situation, because I was taking an exam, I had to write and detail very closely why I needed to take the exam in this particular time and why I couldn't delay it any further. Moving on from that, then you have this section called the Sponsor Employer Application Contact Information. So in my experience, all correspondences have been done through email. Application information details is the next section, and this is where you can add in more than one name if you're applying, for example, if you're a student and you're applying to have both your parents accompany you. So what I would recommend is that you really maximize the space in this supporting documentation. I always find uploading PDFs to be the most professional form of documents, and it also prevents the situation where your file sort of runs out of the format. For my exam, I uploaded my exam details, the date of my exam, what this exam was about, as well as the fees that I've already paid to sit for this exam. So I think those really help form a need, sort of like this is essential for me to go. In Seth's case, because he came with me as my husband to accompany me as a student, we uploaded our marriage certificate, we uploaded my documentation, and this really just draws the link between his application and mine by showing that we are both married. So I hope that was really clear. That if you are applying for work overseas, I would suggest don't just simply post your job approval letter. I think if you can, post more details, maybe a signed employment contract, perhaps your starting date, if you already have any form of documentation that they need you to be there in the office or you need to attend at a certain event, post all of that as well, because the more documentation you have, at least there's more support in order to show your application is likely to be successful. One of the cons about having such big documentation is that there is an upload limit on all the documents here, and that upload limit is 250 KB. So you do need to compress your file to quite a small scale before you'll be able to upload it on the MyTravelPass application. So you want to just increase your chances of getting an approval by making sure your documents are adequately compressed, and please, before you upload, just check that you can open your file. So now I want to talk about certain grounds for rejection. A number of people I've seen online have been rejected for a few reasons. One of them being that this is a non-essential visit. That's why it's so important when you write your description, you need to show how essential it is. Secondly, some of them have been rejected on the basis that their documentation was not complete or their documentation could not be opened. So this is one of the worst ways to sort of lose time in your application, because it means that you need to go through the entire process again. So what I recommend is that always check that your file can be opened before you upload it. So you really don't want a situation where you've sort of done everything right, except that the officer on the other end can't open your file. From what I understand about rejections, if you've been rejected, do not be too disheartened, because many people have had to apply 2 to 3 rounds in order for them to be approved. If you get rejected, just apply again, submit a new application, and let that process happen. On to timelines. So some people were wondering, how long does it take to get MyTravelPass approved? Now, from what I've seen online, a lot of people tend to get approvals within 2 to 3 weeks, but if you get rejected, this may take longer. So I really suggest that you apply as far in advance as you can. However, every MyTravelPass application is only valid for 3 months. So you really want to make sure that you go within that time frame. Finally, once you've submitted the application, you just have to keep checking your email to see whether or not you've gotten an approval. For myself, interestingly enough, although this is a manual application, I received my approval in the wee hours in the morning of 3 AM. So I'm not sure whether it means the system was slow or whether there was some poor officer working into the dead of night trying to approve our application. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If at any point you have any other questions, or if I said anything that's outdated or wrong, please feel free to comment below. Just help everyone else get the right information as well. If this has been helpful to you, please subscribe or let me know in the comments below what other topics you might find useful, especially when it comes to traveling in and out of the country. And I'll see you again next time. Bye!